All right. So good. So we have these trends. We have the crushing of labor unions. We have the reassertion of class power on behalf of financial elites through things like fiscal and monetary policy. We have the financialization of everything. Moving into chapter 2, which is the construction of consent, which is how they actually convinced people to be on board with this. So how was neoliberalization accomplished, and who did it? I guess the main players in the United States and the United Kingdom would be Reagan and sort of his cadre of actors, and then Thatcher in the UK.
The ghouls.
Yeah. So let's see. How should we approach the structure here?
Well, I don't want to diminish the role of the Clintons as well. But they're like,
that's true.
They're the Godfather Part 2. So
yeah, the Washington Consensus of the Clintons. But starting with like even before the neoliberal turn, there were a lot of ideas floating around about like individual freedom and these sort of sexy social movements of the 1960s that were predicated on this idea of like free love and sort of like
individualism.
Right. Yeah. They harnessed the latent individualistic tendencies in the 60s counterculture. You know, being a hippie, being a different, right, being an outsider. And you can see how if capital is in charge of doing it, you could very easily say, oh, well, yeah, being a hippie, being countercultural, it's just about me, baby, right? Just do your own thing, right? Why would you want to belong to a union? Why would you want to be involved in an organization when you can be really cool on your own and have your own brand, right?
Right. And I think it's important to kind of like make clear there's like a two-step way it worked. So first, the neoliberal ideology infiltrated institutions that orbit the state, whether it's like think tanks, universities, the media, some other examples, things like that.
Yeah, the superstructure.
Publishing, the courts, and then eventually doing that creates like a, in the Gramscian sense, like a common sense of what freedom is, the freedom of the market, freedom of individual choice, and so on and so forth. Eventually, that becomes like a hegemonic ideal within society, and then through democratic institutions, neoliberalism can take power of the state. And then from that point, completely unshackled.
Yeah. So there was a lot of work done by neoliberals to sort of co-opt these social movements and deploy language to shape popular opinion. I've actually been thinking about this a lot, so I'm just like gonna find this. I'm gonna find this this John Prine song real quick because I think it encapsulates it really, really well.
And before we keep going, we can just put an edit there. I just have to plug my computer in. I'll take like 10 seconds. Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Patrick, we're gonna live inside the edit right now, so this is all taking place within the edit because I'm finding the lyrics. So getting right back into this, a good example of the way that that neoliberalism, or what happened in neoliberalization to sort of co-opt both social and political movements and also like language pretty effectively, is this John Prine song. It's Spanish Pipe Dream, parentheses, blow up your TV, right? So the chorus is blow up your TV, throw away your paper, go to the country, build you a home, plant a little garden, eat a lot of peaches, try and find Jesus on your own. It's a great song, right? And I love John Prine, and he has a lot of like, great themes in his music, and he was a great songwriter, and he was also like a proletarian, right? Because he was like a postal worker and stuff, and his music's really cool. But I just think this song is a really good, is emblematic of sort of the way that hippies sort of helped inadvertently shift into this neoliberal mode of thought. And I just thought, it's just like, unplug, man. Like, stop reading the news, move out to the country, like grow a garden, and like, don't be part of a community. Don't be part of a union. Don't like talk to people about what's happening politically or economically. Just sort of isolate yourself from society because it's all fucked. You can't do anything about it. So just turn off your TV and unplug, basically.
I think this is like what happens when a social movement lacks a class analysis.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's revolution is a foregone conclusion, right? Give up, right? There's no point. So just make peace with yourself, right? If you can't have an external revolution, maybe you can have an internal one, right? In which you change yourself.
So I want to plug, because these are themes that are brought up in, what's his name? The guy who did hypernormalization.
Adam Curtis.
Adam Curtis. I wouldn't say it's a documentary about neoliberalism, but it's definitely a common theme and touches on some things, especially from like the cultural aspect of neoliberalization that we're talking about. So it's like 3 hours long, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. So you have this sort of co-opting of political and social movements. You have the deployment of language like freedom and the language surrounding these like movements for individual freedom in the 60s and early 70s. It's kind of narcissistic, like hippie stuff that helped move these ideas along and get people unplugged from each other, essentially, and like increase individualization of society. And there's a good quote that he says, any political movement that holds individual freedom to be sacrosanct is vulnerable to incorporation into the neoliberal fold. So I know this is like a common theme nowadays. Like people say like, oh, that's a neoliberal psyop. But like you can actually identify a lot of stuff as like neoliberal psyops, right? Like the sort of, like hippie movement, all kinds of things aren't necessarily deployed into society by neoliberals, but this is the reason I love this quote, can be incorporated into the neoliberal fold, right? So it can take advantage of that kind of thing.
Think about Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
Their persona as like hippies.
And even like Christianity on its face, like shouldn't be neoliberal, or it doesn't really have it doesn't fit together very well with neoliberal ideology. But I think it's around this time you start having the televangelist prosperity gospel kind of stuff going around.
And interestingly enough, Marx writes in Capital that Protestantism is the ideal religion for capitalism. Because it's all about the individual connection to God, right? And your own faith, your own internal faith being the signifier of your religiosity, right?
And that you shouldn't really expect anything from society and helping you, that it's all about like the Protestant work ethic and it's all on your shoulders.
Yes, Protestant work ethic. That's a good point. Yeah.